I once heard someone say that you don't get to choose the family you're born into. But being treated as a burden just because I was a girl, that still haunts me to this day. Every time my mother sighed when she saw me enter the room, I knew I was the mistake she never forgave. My father never called me sweetheart, only addressed me by my name, Julia. As if I were just a name on some forgotten list. They didn't hit me, didn't starve me. But I grew up surrounded by a silence, colder than any punishment. There were nights when I sat on the stairs, listening to my parents laughing as they talked to my younger brother, Mark, and me. I was only called down when the table needed clearing. Even as a child, I understood my place in that house. Not a child to be loved, but a background character, summoned only when needed. My family lived in a small town called Brantford in northern Mississippi, a place where tradition and prejudice seemed to be buried deep in the soil. My father, David Cunningham, owned an auto repair shop that had been running for over 30 years. My mother, Barbara, was an elementary school teacher. They were well known in town, seen as the picture-perfect family. Until someone asked about their eldest daughter, the one they rarely spoke of. I was born 3 years before Mark. I still remember my father telling my mother in front of me, back when I couldn't even spell my name yet, "Let's try one more time. This time, it better be a boy." And when Mark was born, everything changed, not for the better, but in a way that made me slowly disappear from their view. Mark was taught how to fish, taken to baseball games, allowed to mess up without consequence. Me, I was taught to be quiet, to know my place, to fold napkins perfectly and learn to pour tea properly so I wouldn't embarrass the family when I got married. I loved books. By first grade, I was obsessed with the novels in our school library. I dreamed of being a writer or an engineer, anything that could get me out of Brantford. But every time I said that out loud, my father would smirk. "Girls should learn to bake, not waste time writing or doing math. You'll just end up taking your husband's name anyway." In 10th grade, I won a state scholarship, and when I brought home my report card with a glimmer of hope, my mother just glanced at it and said, "Don't get cocky, you're just a student, not a doctor." I remember holding that paper all night, tears blurring the principal's signature. When I applied to a tech college in Memphis, my father exploded, slamming his hand on the table like I just said I was pregnant with a stranger's baby. "So, you're just gonna leave your brother behind? Who's going to take care of the house? Who do you think you are, Julia?" I just stood there, hands gripping my suitcase, trying not to let the tremble in my fingers betray my resolve. Eventually I left at 18, no tears, no hugs. My mother saw me off with a single cold sentence. "If you fail, don't come back." I never did. 12 years passed, no calls, no birthday cards. I lived like a shadow cut off from its roots, but instead of withering, I grew, quietly and relentlessly. I changed my last name to Julia Carter, after my grandmother, the only one who ever told me I was God's gift. She passed when I was 15, and after that, no one in my family ever truly looked at me like a person again. Now, I'm the CEO of a software company that just signed a $40 million deal with an international firm. I have an office in Atlanta, an apartment facing Piedmont Park, and a life they never imagined I could have. Then, on a quiet April morning during a finance team meeting, my phone rang. A familiar name popped up on the screen. Mart, little brother. I hadn't saved his number in years. My heart raced, not from emotion, but instinct. A cold chill ran down my spine. I knew something was wrong, and I also knew they never call without a reason. I didn't answer right away. I let it ring until it stopped, as if testing how soft I'd become. But less than 5 minutes later, a message appeared. "Julia, it's me, Mark. Call me when you can. It's something important about the family." Family. Those 2 words made me want to throw the phone at the wall. But I didn't. I stared at the screen, then set the phone down and went back to the contract draft, waiting for review. An hour passed. I still couldn't focus. I called, not because I cared but because I needed to know what they were up to this time. Mark picked up on the first ring. "Julia, I knew you'd call back." His voice was shaky, like he'd just apologized after a fight. "Make it quick, Mark. Why are you calling? Did you get the wedding invitation?" I frowned. "What invitation?" "Chelsea's, our cousin. She's getting married. She asked you to be a bridesmaid." "Chelsea." "Aunt May's daughter. The only one in the family who didn't treat me like an eyesore." I remembered her chasing after me during summer evenings, always asking, "Julia, how can I be smart like you?" Her voice had always softened the worst days of my childhood. "I haven't lived in Brantford for 12 years, Mark. Why me?" "Because she really wants you there. She said no one else deserves to stand beside her like you. I know you have your reasons for staying away, but Chelsea's not like them." I stayed quiet. My eyes wandered to the window of the 22nd floor of Carter Tech, where I was CEO at age 30. I started with just $800, an old laptop, and a dream my father called a foolish fantasy. Now I led over 150 employees across 3 regional offices. My name had been on Forbes Women in Tech, not once, but 3 years in a row. I built all of it without my family. No support, no hand to catch me when I fell. "So why now?" I asked. "Do Mom and Dad know about this?" Mark sighed. "They're not against it. Actually, Mom said if you come, it'd be a good chance to rebuild bridges." I laughed, a dry, hollow laugh. 12 years of silence, and now she wants to rebuild bridges. Do you know what she said the day I left? "Nah. She told me not to come back if I failed." "I haven't failed, Mark. But I haven't forgotten either." Mark went silent, like he always did when I left him speechless. Finally he just said, "If you have time, think about Chelsea. She really hopes you'll come." I hung up. No reply. But I knew I had made up my mind. 3 days later, a thick cream envelope appeared on my desk, my name embossed, Julia Carter. I opened it. Chelsea's wedding invitation, gold foil, lavender trim, cursive as soft as she had always been. The italicized line made me pause. We would be overjoyed if Julia, the sister I've always admired, would be the maid of honor on our special day. I sat there for a few minutes, holding the card like it might vanish any second. What I felt wasn't anger, not quite pain either, just a strange emotion. Like standing in front of an old house you haven't returned to in years. You know you don't belong anymore, but your heart still beats faster. That night I told Marcus, our CFO and my closest friend, about the invitation. He set down his wine glass and looked at me over the candlelight. "Are you going to go?" "I don't know. I don't need anything from there. But part of me wants to face it." "Then don't go for them. Go for yourself, to look back at the wounds you once carried and prove they no longer control you." I nodded. Maybe Marcus was right. I would go. But not to reconcile. I would go to remind them that the daughter they disowned didn't just survive. She thrived. Beyond anything they ever hoped for in a son. 1 week later, I stepped off a flight to Jackson, Mississippi. The airport was small, humid and hot, but my heart felt like ice. I rented a car and drove to a hotel in downtown Brantford. About 20 minutes from the old house. Close enough to hear what I needed to. Far enough to avoid feeling trapped. Just as I checked in, my phone buzzed. "Chelsea, you really came. I'm so happy. Can I come see you? There's something I think you need to know before seeing them again." I closed my eyes. My instincts whispered. This was deeper than a bridesmaid's invitation. I replied, "Sure. But bring coffee. I have a feeling I'm going to need a lot of caffeine." Chelsea showed up at the hotel with 2 large coffees and a face more tense than any of her old finals. She sat across from me, glanced around like someone might be eavesdropping, then pulled a trifolded sheet of paper from her purse. I don't know where to begin, she said softly, sliding the paper toward me. But you need to know this before you see them. I opened it. It was a bank statement. Not Chelsea's, but for the account of Cunningham Auto Repair, under my father's name. The only sound in the room was the hum of the AC and the pounding of my heart. How do you have this? I asked, eyes fixed on the red numbers. Francis, my fiancé, works at the bank. Yesterday, Uncle Norman, Mom's younger brother, came in to ask about a loan. When Francis pulled up the records, he found out. Uncle David, your dad, his business is on the verge of bankruptcy. They need over $500,000 to cover debts and save the house from foreclosure. I placed the paper back on the table like it was burning my hands. So this is why they invited me back. Chelsea lowered her head, her eyes red and watery. I'm sorry, Julia. I didn't know until yesterday. I really thought they wanted to see you, to make things right. But I overheard Mom talking to Aunt Barbara. Your mom, she said. She has money now, and no matter how much we hate her, we should swallow our pride to save the family. A heavy silence fell over the room. I leaned back in my chair, feeling like the walls were closing in. Pride, huh? All those bragging sessions at the grocery store, all those times they accidentally mentioned my name in local articles. It was just the opening act to a symphony of manipulation. I growled. So they're using the wedding as a public trap, forcing me to help right in front of the guests and relatives. Chelsea didn't reply, she only nodded. And they think I'll cave. After years of silence, insults, abandonment, they think I'll just open my wallet like a fool. They think you won't dare say no because of appearances. Because of family blood. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Pathetic. I stood up, walked to the window, staring out at the streets I left behind when I was 18. Every step, every dollar I earned. They weren't in any of it. And yet now, they were broadcasting to the town that I was going to save the family. I turned to Chelsea. What are they telling people? They're saying you'll invest in the company, help revive the new site. They're saying you're seriously considering the proposal and will announce it at the wedding. I nearly threw my coffee against the wall. Seriously considering what? I haven't even heard the damn proposal. Chelsea stood up, her voice shaking. I know they're wrong, but Julia, please, don't let this ruin the wedding. Francis and I have nothing to do with their mess. I looked at my cousin, the only one who ever called me a role model. I took a deep breath. Don't worry, I won't let your day become a circus. But if they think I'll stand up and give some grateful daughter speech, they clearly don't know who Julia Carter is. That night, I got a message from Lisa, my high school best friend, who still lived in Brantford. Just saw your mom at the grocery store. She's telling everyone the golden daughter is coming back to restore the Cunningham name. What's going on? I smirked as I read the message. They had no idea I'd already seen their hand. I replied, "Get the popcorn ready, the show's about to start." The next morning, I received an email from my assistant in Atlanta. A fresh financial report on my company had just been finalized. Last quarter's revenue was nearly 14% higher than projected, and I was about to sign a partnership deal with a major cybersecurity firm in Europe. I looked at those numbers, then opened Google Drive and began drafting a speech. Not a speech about reconciliation, a speech that would leave them unable to lift their heads in front of anyone at that wedding. I wasn't going to ruin the ceremony. I was going to shatter their fantasy, right in the middle of their own spotlight. When I lifted my head from the laptop, I caught my reflection in the mirror. My eyes were no longer those of the confused girl who left home at 18. They were the eyes of a woman who knew her worth, and was ready to claim everything that was once denied to her. I never thought I'd return to the old house on Willow Creek Drive, yet that evening, I stood right in front of it, at an event called An Evening to Honor Julia Carter, the pride of the Cunningham family. I wasn't joking, that was the actual title printed on the invitation. The house was decorated like it was awaiting a head of state. Twinkling lights across the front yard, white tablecloths on banquet tables, red wine, fresh expensive flowers, and a guest list full of Brantford's most notable faces. Everyone was all smiles, pretending to be close, calling me Dear Julia, though not one had messaged me in 12 years. My mother Barbara greeted me with a stiff hug and a sugar-sweet smile that sent shivers down my spine. "Darling, I still can't believe you agreed to come back. Everyone's so excited to see you," she whispered, lips smiling politely as she leaned into my ear. "Remember, no business talk until after the speech." I stepped back, stared her dead in the eye, then gave a slight nod. "Of course, Mom, everything has to be perfect, right?" I walked into the house like the guest of honor at a celebration I never approved. The living room, where my father once yelled at me for talking back, was now filled with new photo frames. Me on magazine covers, me accepting awards, me speaking at a tech conference in Austin. All printed, enlarged, and framed. "We've always been so proud of our daughter," my father David Cunningham boomed as I walked in, pulling me close like I was the family jewel. "This whole town knows Julia's bringing honor back to the Cunningham name." I smiled thinly. "Honor, huh? No one took pictures when I left this house with nothing but a torn suitcase." He paused for half a second, then changed the subject like he hadn't heard a word. "Come, let me introduce you to some important people." Those important people included Harold Benson, the local bank director, and Roger Ellington, a construction company owner eyeing an investment in the Cunningham Auto Repair Revitalization Plan. Each one shook my hand like I had already wired the funds to their accounts that morning. "The golden girl of tech," Mr. Benson laughed heartily. "We're very excited to hear you'll be investing in the family business. It sends such a strong message about loyalty and tradition." I turned to my father. "When did I talk to these people?" He chuckled and patted my back. "Oh, just a few friendly exchanges." I spoke in a low voice, only he could hear. "If I happen to greed, what are those promises?" "Don't make a scene," he replied, his smile plastered on. "Everything's lined up. They just need to hear a confirmation from you after the party, and that's it, easy as pie." I stepped back. I felt like I was being pushed onto a stage where I hadn't written a script. When I returned to the table, Lisa was already there, her eyes sharp. "You okay?" "They're talking to me like you've already wired the money." "They're not wrong. To them, I'm a smiling ATM. Lisa squeezed my hand under the table. "Do you have a plan?" I gave a slight nod. "I'm going to let them think they're winning, until they have nowhere left to hide." The evening went on like a clumsy but confident play. My mother gave a speech thanking her wonderful daughter for forgiving and coming home. My father poured wine for each investor, preaching about strategic vision and celebrating family unity. I sat quietly, sipping my wine slowly, letting them deceive themselves. Every lie they spoke was another piece of evidence, and I needed it all. As the evening drew to a close, Mr. Benson approached again, his tone more serious. "We need official confirmation, Julia. The paperwork is being prepared. We're processing a loan of $300,000 based on your father's promise." I stood, looking him straight in the eye. "You should wait for the wedding. I'll give one speech, and I guarantee you'll hear everything you need to know." His brow furrowed. "Are you saying there's no commitment?" I smiled. "I'm saying you should be careful what you sign, because the only thing you may be investing in is a class action lawsuit." That night, back at the hotel, I opened my laptop. The wedding speech was almost finished. But now, I added a new section. The part that would silence the room. I also called my attorney, Samantha Price. "Sam, prep everything we have on unauthorized use of my name and image in financial dealings. We'll release a press statement the moment I finish my speech." "Got it. I take it your family hasn't changed?" "No, but I have." That evening the dinner was held at Oak and Ivy, the most upscale restaurant in Brantford. Long tables draped in white satin, chandeliers hanging from the ceiling, the clink of glasses sounding like the heartbeat of a crowd waiting for something monumental. And I, Julia Carter, was the center of it all. My mother wore a deep burgundy velvet dress, her hair perfectly brushed, her smile painted on like a mask. She reached for my hand as if the past decade of silence between us had never existed. Everyone's ready, sweetheart. Ready for what, Mom? I asked, my tone flat, but sharp enough to make her hesitate. Your speech, the happy ending of a reunited family. I smiled. The kind of smile you give a rival who's just walked into their own checkmate. Don't worry, Mom, you'll remember tonight's speech forever. As the background music faded and the host announced, now for the moment we've all been waiting for. The words of Branford's most successful daughter. I stepped onto the stage. The spotlight hit me, the room went silent, expectant faces, and a few calculating ones, turned toward me. My father sat in the front row, legs crossed like a seasoned businessman, waiting for the handshake to close the deal. I took a breath. Thank you all for being here tonight. It's truly an honor to return to Brantford after 12 years. A small town where I was once taught that women shouldn't dream too big. A few awkward laughs, I continued. I was told college was a waste of money, that becoming a CEO was a fantasy, and that a daughter's goal should be to marry well, but I chose a different path. I left home with a suitcase and one belief, that I deserved more than the limits they placed on me. My father's face tightened like a stretched wire. My mother clutched her hands, trying to keep her expression neutral. I've heard that recently my family has been very active speaking with investors. They've been discussing a new business plan, one where I'm the centerpiece. Some have even begun processing bank loans based on promises I would fund it. Unfortunately, I never agreed to any of it. The room stirred instantly. Whispering. Mr. Harold Benson turned to my father, his face drained of color. I spoke clearly, firmly. I haven't signed a single document. I'm not part of any Cunningham business venture. Anyone who's made promises on my behalf is lying. My father shot up from his seat. Julia, this isn't the time. I cut him off without turning around. This is the time. I turned to face him. You thought I'd stay silent while you used my name to secure hundreds of thousands of dollars, while you spun a fake vision and made this town believe I was rescuing your business. You didn't need me for 12 years, but now that you're desperate, suddenly I'm your golden daughter? He stammered. I just wanted to fix things. No, you wanted a lifeline, and you tried to grab it by exploiting a reputation you once treated like garbage. My mother stood too, her voice sharp. You're destroying everything in front of these people. I looked at her, calm. No. I'm cleaning up. Because these people deserve to know the truth. That I'm not the solution to a legacy you two let rot. I glanced down at the front row, where Lisa, Chelsea, and Frances sat silently. Chelsea's eyes were wide with disbelief, but I also saw something else. Relief. I lowered my voice, but it carried. If anyone here was given promises by my parents, reconsider. I will not spend a dime to cover up incompetence and deceit. I am not a partner, I am not committed, and I am no longer the child afraid of being abandoned. The entire room was dead silent. And I didn't come back to be the good daughter. I came back to reclaim my voice. And if that embarrasses anyone, that's a consequence, not my fault. I left the stage to whispers, shocked stares, and a heavy silence behind me. My father didn't follow. My mother collapsed into her seat, like someone had just taken a punch to the chest. Lisa touched my shoulder as I stepped down. You did the right thing. I nodded, nothing more needed. Chelsea ran up behind me. Julia, you're still my bridesmaid, right? I turned, held her hand. I'll stand beside you, as part of the family you chose, not the one tied by blood. On Chelsea's wedding day, the sun was soft, the sky a deep blue, without a single cloud, like even the heavens were holding their breath. I walked into the ballroom of the Hawthorne Grand Hotel in a deep blue bridesmaid dress, simple but sharp, not flashy but impossible to ignore. Today, I wasn't just attending the wedding of a cousin I loved. Today, I was ending the Cunningham family's charade. Chelsea glowed in her white lace gown, her eyes sparkling with happiness. When I approached, she gently squeezed my hand and whispered, I trust you, do what you need to do. I nodded. I wasn't going to ruin her special day. But I was going to make it a day Brantford would never forget. The reception followed the church ceremony. Crystal chandeliers sparkled, soft music played, and my father, David Cunningham, walked around the ballroom like nothing had happened 2 days earlier, shaking hands with investors and bankers, his face smug with false pride. My mother was chatting with the local media, whispering repeatedly, "What a wonderful evening, just wait for the speech. There's a big surprise coming." Oh, there would be a surprise, just not the one they were expecting. When it was time for the Maid of Honor speech, the MC's voice rang out. "And now, please welcome Julia Carter, the inspiring woman and Brantford's symbol of success, to share a few words with the bride and groom." I stepped onto the stage to applause. Hundreds of eyes turned toward me, some full of hope, some skeptical, and a few, especially at my parents' table, barely breathing. I took the mic and offered a soft smile. "First of all, congratulations to Chelsea and Francis. You've just begun a new chapter, and I'm truly honored to be part of today." I glanced at my parents' table, pausing a beat before continuing. "Over the past few days I've been asked many times, are you going to invest in saving the family business? Are you moving back to Brantford to rebuild the legacy?" And today, I have an answer. The room fell silent. The answer is no. I don't invest in things that once rejected me. I didn't return to rescue a system that called my dreams nonsense. Whispers broke out everywhere. A few investors flipped their notebooks. Bank representatives exchanged tense glances. I continued, clear and firm. "But I am investing, just not in my old family." Today, I officially announced the launch of the Julia Carter Foundation, a $1 million fund dedicated to supporting girls who face gender discrimination in education and technology. A wave of shock rippled through the room. Some stood, cameras were raised, microphones blinked red. Each year, the foundation will provide full scholarships to young girls whose dreams were shut down by their own families, girls who were told they weren't good enough, just like I was. I looked directly at my parents. Not a single dollar of this fund will go to those who belittled me or used my name as a financial tool. On the contrary, if those behaviors continue, the foundation will provide legal support to help girls escape toxic family control. My father stood, his face flushed red. "Julia, this is ridiculous. It's your cousin's wedding." "Exactly," I said, turning to Chelsea. "And she gave me the chance to turn a wedding day into the beginning of a new era, one where girls aren't suffocated by outdated expectations." The camera swung to Chelsea. She nodded, eyes shimmering. "You're the only one I trusted with the mic on my wedding day." I turned back to the crowd. "And finally, let me be clear. Any talk of a return, investment, or saving the family from David and Barbara Cunningham is false. I did not agree. I never signed anything, and I've handed over the matter to my legal team for misrepresentation and financial fraud." A reporter jumped up. "Is that true? They really used your name to secure loans?" "I have proof, and if the banks want it, I'll provide it." The room exploded with noise, talking, muttering, chairs screeching as several people got up from my parents' table, including Mr. Benson, and 2 investors from Jackson. My mother stood, face pale, eyes wide. "Julia, you're destroying your parents." "No, Mom," I replied. "You and Dad did that yourselves. I'm just refusing to carry the burden anymore." I set the mic on the table and walked off the stage to a round of applause, not because my speech was eloquent, but because it was true. 2 weeks after the wedding, the news spread through Mississippi like wildfire. Local newspapers, radio stations, even finance blogs ran the headline. "Entrepreneur Julia Carter exposes parents for financial fraud, launches $1 million fund for girls." The public reaction wasn't just curiosity, it was outrage. The Cunningham family, once praised as a model of traditional unity, was now exposed for what they were: greed, manipulation, and lies, behind a polished facade. First Federal Bank of Brantford announced it was cancelling all loan applications connected to Cunningham Auto Repair. A week later, the auto shop headquarters, once my father's so-called man sanctuary, was shut down. A liquidation sign hung crooked beneath the faded words, "Since 1981. The house on Willow Creek Drive didn't escape foreclosure either. They had 30 days to move out. No more investments, no more clients. All that was left was a pile of bricks and empty promises." I heard the news from Lisa. She still tracked everything in Branford like an amateur detective. "They're packing up. The neighbor saw him screaming and throwing stuff in the garage," she said in a voicemail. "And your mom, she was just quietly wrapping books." I didn't feel satisfied. Just a strange emptiness in my chest. Somewhere between justice and pain. After all, they were the ones who gave me life. Even if they never lived up to it. One Thursday afternoon, I was reviewing scholarship applications with the team at the Carter Foundation office in Atlanta when the door opened. Barbara Cunningham stood there. She wore an old cardigan, her hair pinned up, holding a folder in her hands. "I don't have an appointment," she said quickly before anyone could ask, "but I heard Thursdays are volunteer training days." I looked at her. She was no longer the proud woman who once scoffed at every dream I had. She looked like someone who had lost her way, and was trying to find the road back, even if it was too late. "You came to apply as a volunteer?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. "I came to learn. I'm not here to ask for anything." Behind me, Lisa stood up, ready to approach, but I motioned for her to stop. I walked over and took the folder from her hands. Inside were a resume, a health check report, and a handwritten letter. I pulled it out and skimmed the first few lines. "I have no excuse left. I once believed controlling my children was the only way to protect the family's reputation. Now I see I destroyed the most sacred thing, my daughter's trust. I don't expect forgiveness. I just want to learn how not to keep failing." I folded the letter and looked her in the eye. "If you're here because you truly want to change, there are no privileges, no special seating, no special treatment. I understand, and I'm ready to start from the very bottom." I nodded. "Next Thursday, 8 o'clock in the morning. Don't be late." She tried to smile but couldn't manage it. I returned to my desk and resumed reviewing applications, as if the conversation had never happened. 3 weeks passed. My mother showed up on time for every training session. She organized the book room, sorted files, made coffee for the staff, always silent but attentive. The HR team eventually stopped whispering. Instead, they began watching her with quiet respect. Lisa leaned toward me one morning. "She works harder than some of our interns." "Because she knows this is her last chance," I replied, eyes still on the applicant list. On the 30th day since the old house was seized, I was going over the latest scholarship list when the office door opened again. This time, it was David Cunningham. My father, worn-out shirt, scuffed shoes, and in his hands, a volunteer application. Lisa and an assistant both stood up, their posture alert. I stayed seated and asked only one question. "What?" He swallowed hard, not meeting my eyes. "Because I have nowhere else to go, and because I need to understand what I destroyed. No special treatment. There's no father of Julia Carter here," I said coldly. "I know, I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking to learn. If there's still a chance." I didn't reply immediately. I took the form and handed it to my mother, who was standing behind the coffee bar, startled to see her ex-husband walk in. "You're leading next week's training group. He'll be in it, from the beginning, no missteps allowed." My father nodded. His eyes were tired, but the fake pride was gone. I didn't feel victorious. I only saw a process of rebirth. Slow, painful, but real. 3 months after Chelsea's wedding, the Julia Carter Foundation officially reached its goal of funding the first 100 girls. The office buzzed like a beehive. Calls, emails, grant requests poured in. Not just from Mississippi, but from across the southern United States. Many of the girls wrote me letters, saying the speech at the wedding didn't just protect my reputation, it saved their dreams. Shaky handwriting, misspelled words, but full of trust and inspiration. The very thing I once longed for when I was the girl left out in Branford. I often sat in my glass office on the top floor, looking down at the young team, working non-stop to run the foundation. It was the image I had dreamed of. A generation of women who dared to speak, to rise, and to demand the right to dream. And the strangest thing, my parents, David and Barbara Cunningham, were now two of the hardest working volunteers at the foundation. My mother led new volunteer training, teaching them how to listen to the girls instead of imposing. My father, the same man who once laughed at me for saying tech was for women, now sat downstairs in the print room, placing name labels on scholarship congratulation letters. We didn't call each other Mom or Dad anymore. I called them Barbara and David, a clear boundary. But that clarity was what allowed us to exist in the same space, without anyone being suffocated by expectation or resentment. One Thursday morning, Lisa walked into my office with a folder, but what caught my attention wasn't the documents. It was the look in her eyes. "You should come to the main meeting room," she said quietly. "There's something you need to hear yourself." I stood and walked down the glass corridor, a knot tightening in my chest. When I entered, my father, David, was standing in the center of the room, in front of 15 new volunteers. He held a short speech in his hands, but he wasn't looking at the paper. "I used to be a bad father," he said, his voice low. "I used to believe daughters couldn't lead, that emotions were weakness, that success belonged only to men." The room went still. I stood at the door and no one knew I was listening. I was wrong, deeply wrong, and it took nearly 20 years, a bankruptcy, a public disgrace, and a lot of pain for me to finally face it. But I'm here. Not to redeem myself, but to help others avoid that same path. I didn't step in. I turned and walked back to my office, my heart pounding. Not from emotion, but from something deeper. Real change. That night my mother knocked on my office door. No warning, no pretense. "I want to thank you for giving me this chance," she said. "But I understand, not everyone gets one." I closed my laptop and looked at her. "You've worked hard. I'm not blind to that. Do you think it's time we called each other by the old words again?" she asked softly. I sat still for a few seconds, then replied, "Not yet. But maybe, one day, when it doesn't make me feel small anymore." She nodded. No pressure, no tears. Just turned and walked away. And it was that silence that brought me more relief than any apology ever could. 3 weeks later I received a letter from MIT. One of the students funded by the foundation, Caroline, the daughter of an immigrant, had been accepted into the nation's top robotics research program. I printed the letter and pinned it to the achievement board in the hallway. Beneath it, my mother stood in silence, tears rolling down her cheeks. I didn't ask what she was crying for. I didn't think she knew either. One Monday morning, Chelsea and Frances came to visit. Her baby bump was now clearly showing. "We've picked a name," Chelsea smiled. "If it's a girl, I want to name her Julia." I froze. "I'm not sure that's the best choice," I said with a soft laugh. "You're the person I want my child to look up to," she said. "Because you broke the cycle this whole town has tried to keep alive." By the end of the day, I sat alone in my office, looking down at the backyard, where a group of little girls were attending a free STEM class. They were laughing, eyes sparkling, as if every cell in them ached for a new future. Lisa walked in with a cup of coffee and a stack of newspapers. 3 more tech companies want to sponsor next year," she said. "Your foundation's spreading across the entire Southeast." I took the coffee, gazing out at the children. "Maybe this is how the toxic cycle ends," I said, "not through revenge, but through intentional change." Lisa smiled. And who would have thought, it all started with a wedding in Branford. I took the first sip, a faint smile tugged at the corners of my mouth. Not everything had been forgiven, but everything was being rebuilt. Brick by brick, girl by girl, generation by generation. Julia's story is proof that strength doesn't come from blood, it comes from resolve and the courage to choose differently. Though she was disowned, used, and manipulated by her family, she didn't let the past define her. Instead of retaliating with bitterness, Julia built a better future, not just for herself, but for hundreds of other girls. She didn't erase the past, but turned it into the fuel to end a toxic legacy. Through action, intellect, and conditional compassion. What do you think about Julia's decision? Was she too firm, or was it necessary to break a harmful cycle? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to follow the channel to explore more powerful and emotional family stories.